All right. Today, I want to talk about something. When most people think about data systems, they think about reports, they think about dashboards, KPIs, pretty graphs. But underneath all of that is something that people don't talk about a whole lot, which is a map, the thing that kind of pulls it all together. And I feel like a lot of companies don't really know how their own data connects, they don't fully understand the relationships between it. So today, Christian, I want to talk to you about an important item that I think kind of goes under the radar, but helps people solidify these thoughts. And that's ERDs. Those are entity relationship diagrams. They pull things together and make it visually understandable. So
You're listening to Data Minding, the show where tech meets real talk. Hey guys, I'm Christian Screen, your data and AI evangelist.
And I'm Kirsten Screen, the one here to make sure the tech brain actually speaks human. Every week, we take you inside the world of enterprise data and AI, uncovering what's working, what's new, and how to make sense of your own data. Let's mind it, and get into this episode.
Greetings. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. All right, let's start with the basics for people who aren't versed in this language.
Yes.
What's an ERD?
An ERD, it goes by many different names. At the end of the day, an ERD is a diagram that shows relationship between items, objects, entities, typically around data modeling, data systems, and that really helps kind of articulate the technical aspect of these data relationships, usually between systems, like I said. So they're very helpful for understanding how data joins together, how it relates to other data, things like hierarchies are exposed, things like parent-child relationships, things like that, which may be a familiar term, but ERDs.
So a visual representation
Yes.
of all the tech stuff happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Is that encompasses it, or is it a visual representation of this means this and this means that, but or also how things come together and what you get at the end?
Yeah, a little bit of both, right? So you can have an ERD for any type of system that's being designed.
Okay.
And then you can have an ERD for a system that's taking that designed information and using it for another purpose. So an example would be take a Salesforce.com or something like that. Somebody had to build that system to begin with, right? So you'd have an architect, an engineer, computer scientist, and they would say, hey, we need to store this customer relationship management data, so CRM data, in a database, right? So you need a specific table to store customer information.
Sure.
And you need another table to store leads that might come in. You need another one for maybe your sales team. So each one of these ultimately somehow get related, right, to each other. So you might have lead is associated with a customer. You have a salesperson that's associated with a customer. And then you might have products you're trying to sell. And if a customer buys a product, how is that product or that customer related to the product that they purchased? So you could think of these as like lines kind of connecting each one of these tables in a visual diagram, right? So that would be kind of what we call an operational system. Somebody had to design that. Somebody built an ERD so that they could talk about it, lay it out, pass it to the engineer, enhance it, that type of thing. And then, of course, be able to tout and expound the claims of what it actually does in a visual.
So what I'm hearing then from a here's why we care perspective, is this something that traditionally is more behind the scenes? Like it's the technical people that see all of this, know all of this and whatever.
Usually.
And is it also, on the operation side, or should it be on the operation side?
No side. So if you're a business person, my favorite type of people, my favorite customers, people who understand the business, understand the domain they're working on. They don't want to chop down the tree and carve the wood themselves. They just want a bookshelf, right? Product, right? So
they probably also don't want to know all the details of how the bookshelf got built.
Correct. They just want the bookshelf. They don't even want to IKEA it, right? They just want it to, come off the truck,
built, ready to use,
sit in the corner of the office, right? And because they know how they're going to use that bookshelf, right? Maybe a very bad analogy example. But the technical people, right, who need to build that bookshelf, for example, and source the parts, they need that ERD because it basically acts as a blueprint, right? And so if they need to reproduce something or extend it or add another shelf onto this bookshelf, then that's what they'll start with. They'll use that as a reference. They can tell you all the details. And of course, hopefully at the end of the day, you get a nice, beautiful bookshelf.
So then why, and maybe you'll have to expound a little bit so that I better understand this, is this something that's always been used in the technical space? Or is this something that is people are now recognizing we probably need this roadmap, and we think we understand our data, and how it all works together, but maybe
Yeah.
we don't. Is this a new thing?
No, no, it's been around for a long time. There's lots of different books on the subject matters, lots of different tools that are out there to help, build and design ERDs from scratch. We've seen people use Microsoft, was it PowerPoint to build like very basic ERDs. But the more complex your data systems, the more complex your organization, the larger, you're going to need something that's an enterprise grade that really scales and so forth. So it's been around for a long time. But where we're seeing the real demand and desire for it is more on what we call data modeling. And this is really where, you have a Salesforce.com or a Ceridian Dayforce or, Oracle HCM, and that's all fine and dandy. But now we want that data to build a data warehouse or data lake, or we want some of that data to help us build and inform our AI models, right? So now you need a process that takes that source data, synchronizes it down to another system, a data lake, a data warehouse, a Databricks, a Snowflake, a Synapse, a Fabric, right? And from there, you're going to take some of those tables and entities, and you're going to relate it to like whatever your end goal is, right? So you need to see better KPIs for your sales metrics. You need to see orders tied into customers, tied into labor and
Mhm.
cost, right? So that's something that operational system's probably not giving you. So, but now when you move that down into that more like analytical AI data transformation layer, now you really need another ERD so that you understand the relationship of this new model that has been built.
So that sounds complex. So my question then is that something that is routinely being done by the people who are doing this complex work? Or is this a piece of the puzzle that is sometimes skipped but probably needs more visibility?
Yeah, sometimes it's an afterthought.
Okay.
So I think good engineers, I like to use the term AI engineer, analytics engineer, data engineer, a really solution architect should know that if you're building a net new model, you should really design it first. You should have an ERD so that you can just explain yourself. And if you're leading a team, you have to get everybody else on the same page. Kind of, it's like, math in high school. It's kind of like show your
Show
work.
your work.
Yeah.
So when that doesn't happen, or even if it does happen, it's poorly executed, what kind of issues are you seeing with people who are in these complex systems and the mapping maybe wasn't done the way that it should be done, or wasn't
Yeah.
available the way it should be available?
Yeah, if it's not available, then people are kind of just making assumptions. And it really is what happens. It's one of the critical points of failure that is kind of underlaid in large organizations from the beginning. When it's not done correctly, not kept up to date, then people are referencing old information,
Right.
right? And then they're building on top of old, outdated information. If there's not one, then people are going to code basically, and they're updating code, which then is kind of in a siloed place because only if you can then read the code or the SQL or model can you really understand like the bigger picture, right? So there's a lot of ramifications for not having a good ERD there. Consistent is part of the process of what I might even call quality to governance.
So when somebody is employing an end-to-end solution from, let's say, a data infrastructure company, this is something that's going to help the client in the end when they implement these systems.
Yeah, it's going to really help. We deal a lot with also like pre-built models, right? So we're connecting to a Salesforce.com or an Oracle HCM or name your HCM tool. And when you bring that through with an ELT tool, something that's going to synchronize and replicate the data
Mhm.
into your Snowflake or your Databricks or your Fabric or Synapse, whatever, then once that data lands there, there's an opinionated view of the data. If it's something that wasn't built by your team, these days I would implore most data teams not to build their own actual like data synchronization process from like these
Why?
bigger tools. It just takes a lot of time and then they have to maintain it. So it's kind of a painful thing. But once that data is moved down into the, what people call now the bronze layer, right? This is like the raw data. So I've synchronized my data from my Oracle database or my Oracle HCM or name your data source, and I've brought that into my Snowflake or my Databricks, referring to that as the bronze layer or the raw layer. So now that layer, if there's a lot of different entities there, your data engineer, your analytics engineer really doesn't understand the relationship of that
Hmm.
data, right? They didn't build the Oracle platform. They didn't build Salesforce platform. But if you're bringing that data down, having an ERD is going to help you understand like, oh, now I see how that that customer relates to this order, that relates to this address, that relates to X, Y, and Z. And it gives them a little bit of a, I won't call it leapfrog, but it gives them a step up from, having nothing. Maybe you could call it like a little bit of a Rosetta Stone, I think you said earlier. So,
So, from your experience with having worked with all different, sort of layers and roles within the organization, tech and business oriented and whatever, whose job is it to take leadership on that? To making sure these ERDs exist and there's direction and there's transparency and there's documentation and there's overview and
yeah, it's a great question. There's so many roles and so many titles. At the end of the day, it's going to be the person who's going to be using that data from scratch. If you're lucky enough to work with a company that's providing that synchronization process, if that company has it, then, kudos if they can provide that. Otherwise, it's going to be up to that solution architect or solution engineer to build that. They should know that at that point. This is one of the things I wouldn't leave it in the hands of the CTO or the CIO.
expand on that.
I've got lots of opinions about that title and that role.
Give us a 30-second synopsis.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, yeah, these are people who are management positions, and look, they're going to probably come from some long history of experience working at some, big, 3 or 4 letter acronym organization, but it doesn't mean that they've actually done the detailed work, right? Or know best practices, especially with data and AI being still really, really new. And, there's a lot of cutting edge things that are out there, but, leading these teams, get everybody to read from the same page, an ERD diagram, the tools to select and those types of things. I think they're best left up to a seasoned solution architect who really understands the ramifications of these things. And look, if you're going out to buy any of these tools, typically there's going to be a little bit of a cost behind them. But I think the cost of not having them outweighs the cost of having them, right? Meaning that if you are trying to lead a best-in-class enterprise data analytics AI team, and you're not investing both in the team and the technology,
Right.
then the opportunity cost is obviously going to be huge. And then you could look at that and say that there's some sort of sunk cost bias that's happening in your organization,
Yep.
right? You don't want to spend the money because you think you can do something better. That's both time, money, and skills being applied, maybe in the wrong direction.
To potentially have the desired outcome, but also very large potential to not even have the desired outcome. I think that sunk cost fallacy is true across probably every industry out in the world, but thinking that I have in-house people, I'm paying these in-house people, I'm already spending this money on these in-house people, I'll just have them do it. But that's usually in your experience with having done this for 2 decades.
No, it's not the best solution. And to some degree, you could say it's the wrong way to think about things in technology. Whether you're trying to be competitive, you're trying to keep your people, you think about your people, they want to work on things that add value.
Right.
As soon as you've sunk them into a position of just doing the mundane rigmarole of keeping the lights on in the system, that type of thing, there's probably opportunity for them to work on other things or leave that company, go somewhere else with the skills they've learned and maybe work on something new there. So by bringing in these tools, adapting with current technology, I think you're going to get more out of the people that you have. And then you're going to get that kick in of acceleration from having these third-party tools come in and that are best in class. And
So just go ahead and solve the problem.
Just solve the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is the goal. So the bottom line, ERDs, have them, use them, have the right people build them.
Yes.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Christian, tell us a little bit about what's going on with DLH, with the work that you all are doing with
Yeah.
data integration and making sure your customers don't have these issues where things don't make sense, things aren't connected properly, and people don't get the big vision.
Yeah. So, we're doing so much cool stuff at DLH. It's super exciting. Almost like from the first day we kind of opened up and had our first few customers, and really with some of the newer connectors that we've built, provide the automated data replication and synchronization. I mean, a lot of stuff happening over at Oracle. We've got some of the newer Oracle Fusion connectors, bringing that data down.
Nice.
A lot of HCM, but we're really focused on transactional based systems, combining that with things like labor and sales data. So it's pretty exciting. And so speaking of ERDs, we've now started incorporating stronger ERD concepts with our actual connectors. So we think this is really helping our customers to be informed about the product, the outcome of the product itself, so that it saves them time. They have a great product to begin with, but now they actually have ERDs to what that shape of the data is going to look like once they've connected to their operational system. and it's landing in their Databricks or their Snowflake or their Teradata. And I think it's going to be huge as we roll this out. We were starting to do it with some of our more popular connectors, but then we'll backfill some of the smaller connectors, some of our lightweight connectors over the next many months.
And getting good feedback from clients. They're liking what they're seeing.
Yeah, they're liking. We actually had a customer the other day. They were saying they were looking at a different set of ELT tools, and then they saw that
Because they had a resource?
Yeah, they had a resource there who had worked with another tool at a previous company as a data engineer or analytical engineer. And they were looking at one of our specific connectors. I want to say it was for our Dayforce connector. And they saw maybe a competitor of ours had one. And then they saw that we had this ERD and they were like, hey, that's exactly what we're trying to build.
Perfect.
And that's always great when, the light bulb goes off for a customer and they get exactly what they want out of a solution.
Fantastic. So bottom line, ERDs, they're good. We should have them. Make sure in your packaged solutions, you get what you need. Clients are happy. Data moves.
Yeah.
Everything's good at the end.
And if you're working with a company and they don't appear to have what you need, sometimes it's just a simple question.
Right.
And they might have it for internal purposes only, not thinking, hey, maybe the customer doesn't really need that. We're already delivering X, Y, and Z. But if someone's really interested and they're really trying to solve a problem, it's a simple phone call. It's a simple email. Reach out. We do it all the time. Reach out to us on our support, get back to you. And chances are we can solve the problem or we have something you need. Just quick communication will do it.
Fantastic. So if somebody wants to find out more about the connectors, about ERDs as part of that, they head to dlh.io and just reach out via the form that you guys have online. Fantastic. Well, thank you for another beautiful episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.
That's a wrap on this episode of Data Mining. Thanks for hanging out with us.
If you learned something new, do us a favor and hit subscribe, and then share this episode with a colleague.
Don't forget, you can find us over at dlh.io. We'll be back next episode with more stories and strategies around data and AI. See you soon.